trim a couple of bowls. Dampen the wheel head just a little bit, not too much, because you don't want it to slide. It's possible to make bowls stick sometimes just by wetting the rim and then centering it. And then just popping it. Let's see if that holds. If it doesn't, I'll tack it down. Oh. So that's good anyway, because I needed to feel where the weight was. So you can like sort of hold it in your hands. The walls are relatively thin to about right there, and then it starts the curve starts going. So I have a lot of clay right here, and I have thick enough. I can kind of feel that I have it thick enough to trim there all the way to the edge there. So let's get it centered again. All right, it's not quite like I want it. You can trim off-centered rims, like there are kind of variations by using a chuck, but this one's pretty uniform. I sometimes like this one. It's a little bit irregular, but it'll probably also work because it's irregular all the way around in different ways. It doesn't have any like really high places. So I still want to dampen the wheel head just a little bit, but don't leave too much water on there. And then I have a piece of porcelain there. I thought I had some porcelain, but I do have one porcelain piece I need to trim. I want to use the same clay, just not to dirty it. It's not a white porcelain, but it's still a different shade than the stoneware, my general stoneware. Okay, so yeah, you can get it going pretty fast. If you know where the weight is, because some of this just takes time to learn. So, all right, I don't really want to cut much more than there. I think that's probably a good. I just want to see where I want the. Okay, so the most clay I can get is right there. So I'm gonna start with doing the larger part there, and then going like that. Do an undercut. I have a really nice Warren McKenzie piece, and it was nice to see that he had some irregularities in his throwing. He's a very accomplished potter, but he had like I mean, there was actually some little pieces of trash at the foot that were fused, and that was interesting to see. Not even by imitating him, because I wasn't really as aware of his work until later. But in my formative years, I was looking at Leach and Cardew and Hamada. And but then I kind of have a much more eclectic practice than those that were specifically functional potters. And I had a teacher called his name was Jeff Caller, and his throwing style, you know, had that Hamada Leach, Cardew sensibility, but he was a sculptor more than anything. And he, although I'd seen it before, like Ron Myers at the university through Off-Center, he pointed out how uniform my work was. And I mean, I've never been like super precision, except for specific pieces that I wanted precise. So he pointed out, different things to me about my work. Even though I was doing more sculpture than, my other work. Let's see if that's what I want. I'm not sure if it is. I think the foot's a little bigger than I want. So that's a little closer. All right. I probably almost went too far with it. No, that's just right. All right, then I'll go around and I'll look and see if there's clay I need to get off. And from tacking it down, it has a good weight too. This is, for me, a little lighter than I've been throwing lately. I've been trying to pay attention, and I've got a little place, a divot in here I want to fill in some where I had picked out some hard clay and then didn't repair it right. So probably picked it up when I was wedging the hard clay. Okay, so that's the piece. And I always kind of smooth. Whoops, I didn't that time, did I? I'm gonna put it back on just for a second. I miss smoothing out this part. So you can put a sponge back on it. I didn't have to center it completely then. Okay, now it's like I want it. So you can see, I did a kind of spiral throwing after I had gotten it round, and then I put my fingers through it really quickly. And if it's not round, then I can fool with that too. So I messed the rim up again, so clean it. The last thing that I do is I find, oh yeah, here they are. So I have several sets of stamps, and you want to make sure they're clean before you use them. And then I figure out where I want to put them, and push in with my finger supporting on the other side. Kind of makes a little bit of a divot if the wall's relatively thin. So I'm gonna make sure that it doesn't poke in there. And then I have a decorative stamp. I switch out stamps sometimes, but not as much as I used to. I need to make another one of those. This is not quite as good as I want it. Anyway, there we go. My mark. There's a long story there. I signed when I was young, then I didn't sign at all for a while. Then I had a new stamp every year. Tried to catalog those and gave up. And just went to one stamp. And then I like one of my decorative stamps, so I use it as well. Could probably just use the decorative stamp and symbol stamp. It's a moon and a sun with a cross in the middle of the sun. I think it's a Russian Orthodox cross, but it means something else to me. It means, well, aside from the obvious, it has a relationship to the idea of City of Brotherly Love, which is a concept from Revelation, future harmony on the earth. All right, That's that. I'm gonna trim another one. This is the one that's slightly irregular, so, but I think it's probably level, so yeah, it is. So I'm gonna do that one. I've got some small bowls I need to trim. Probably won't talk while I do them. Another way that you can, if you can't do this tapping, if it's not even, it won't go to the center. But if you can't do, if you can't do the tapping, you just like mark it like that, and then you stop it and push it to the right area. So let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna see how close I am. Just, yeah, I don't even, well, it is a little bit here. That's probably it. I think my tapping is maybe close. Oh, that's pretty good. Alright. So, I'm gonna use the same clay because it gets a little drier, so it works a little better. Alright. You want enough that it doesn't push away from the pressure of your cutting, and you can clean up afterwards. Now this one I have a pattern in it, kind of a spiral pattern, and that's a specific kind of throwing that I do where you cut straight down and then you throw the inside from the inside out. You don't touch the outside afterwards. So I don't want to interfere with that too much, so I'm going to start where the cutting starts, or approximately where it starts. But first, what I do is I see how narrow I want the foot. So I've got enough clay to really cut here. So I'm gonna bring the foot in a little bit and then go down. And I think I want to go in just a little bit further. So there we go. See if that's what I want. Yep, I'm going to put a little bit of a defining line, not quite there, a little defining line. Hopefully I haven't gone too far with this. And smooth that out. And then I go do my down cut on the edge, where there's probably more clay than anywhere else. And then, let's see, make sure, okay, I think I just about went too far. But I'm gonna go from the center out first just to get it below the edge. And then my final cut is gonna be a quick move to make my spiral. And then refine this just a little bit. And I can use a sponge, or I can just use my finger, but I think I'm going to use a sponge just to make it a little softer. There we go. Soften my spiral. Let's see. Actually, that didn't go too far. I still have quite a bit of clay there. So, it's kind of heavy. When I do these, they can wind up being heavy because of the. So I think that I can cut a little higher. So I'm gonna go back and do this again, just a little bit. There's weight right in here, so I'm gonna bring that angle up a little bit and in. It'll give me some really interesting kind of look, a little bit of an angle to contrast with the curve. Now I can really see whether it's centered. So, like I said, I'm not precision in anything, so I do things until I get what I want. And I paint, and I like the contrast between uniformity and irregularity, so I sometimes work that way. Well, when I pushed in, I got a little bit off, so. This is just gonna be a fast move here because I really got a lot more than I need. So I'm just gonna go straight down at an angle with this, and then in a little bit. I still have clay there. All right, I don't want to do too much. Gives me a pretty strong foot there. I had a little more clay there, so just went down just a little bit. There's a little water on there, so I can use it to soften it. See if that's what I want. I'll do a line here, and maybe even there. There we go. And that is closer to what I wanted. It makes quite a different look doing a little bit higher foot than that, if you can see that. Alright, so we got a bunch of small ones I need to do before they dry out on me. So these are thrown off the hump, so the bottoms are not. Well, this one wasn't thrown off the hump. This one was. So that one, both of these were thrown off the hump and cut off with a fettling knife. Although traditionally the Japanese would use a little silk thread. I'm just going to go ahead and tack them down. They're drier than what you would want to make them for like. But if you have a really wide bowl and heavy, a large bowl, they'll stay in place a little easier. Small ones, any pressure against them, and it's gonna probably move them. So. Now this also has a good bit of clay, considering what I can take off. So throwing this off the hump, like it's not entirely guesswork, but there is a little bit of whoops. Tack it down again. You gotta hold it so it doesn't move when you do this. I don't know why it came loose, but it did. Three's the magic number. Use 3. Oh, there it is. It's underneath my wheel head. All right, there we go. So something this small, I can actually use the smaller tool, but I have to find it. Well, maybe I'll look at a slightly smaller one. I'll use it. See if it'll work. Haven't left that line there, like around there where it's cut. Now it still is. I still have a little bit of clay at the bottom, but I like that because that'll keep it where it won't move, and it's not very big, so it feels good in your hand. A little weight, not enough to where it interferes with the inside, where you still got enough room for something, shot glass or whatever. Alright, I got this one is a lot lighter, so I gotta be careful when I trim it. So I want to find that other tool. I must have left it somewhere. Here it is, this one. So for this small one, I'm going to use this tool. It's a Luke tool, but it's a smaller type of Luke tool. This is a kick wheel. I really like this kick wheel. This is the one I demonstrate on usually, unless I'm doing really large pieces and I need to be lower so I can stand over it when I work. I learned how to use a garden burner to create large works from a friend of mine, John Brindley, and I was his teacher for years. Now I'm just seeing what he's doing. He's a lot better at building things than I am. He's built several kilns. I have two, but not to the extent he has. Built and rebuilt, mostly rebuilt. Wood kilns, that kind of thing. I didn't do what I said, did I? I'm gonna look at this side to get what I want. Sometimes on these small pieces, I generally don't trim them, but I will put my stamp. So I need a little bit of extra clay here. I'll put my stamp on the inside. So the clay will give me something to press into because it's already pretty dry. So I don't want too much water on there, or else my stamp won't work. So I'm just gonna put my initials. The story about whether I signed or not, I'm sort of the same way with my paintings. I will sign like paperwork, works on paper on the front because it kind of has that look that it belongs there, and I leave a border around them so you can sign in the border and it's not actually in the piece. But for paintings, I often sign the back, like on the wood of the frame of the stretcher or on the wood of the panel that I use. And I just don't want my signature interfering with what I've already done, because my signature is very specific, and it's sort of like, well, I got two things going on. One's the painting or whatever I'm doing, collage, and the other one is the so I got to feel this to see where the weight is, and this has a good bit, but it's actually right where you want to trim it, as opposed to having weight in the wrong places. Well, not the wrong places, but is there a right or wrong to anything in terms of making? I guess there is, but in terms of aesthetics, you can develop aesthetics in many, many different directions. I've combined a lot of things. In ceramics, it's East and West, you know, the obvious Chinese, Japanese, but also early Greek, archaic cultures around the world. You see all kinds of similarities as well between different cultures. So in a way, they're all our heritage, whether they come from Europe or China or Africa or, you know, all the 7 continents, the Americas, north, south. And I don't know that there was pottery done in the Arctic or the Antarctic. Australia. I'm not really familiar with Australian ceramics, or if they have a tradition there. It's one of the few places I haven't really looked into. I might recognize something if I saw it, but off the top of my head, no. So here we go. I won't talk during this one. But, you know, the thing is I work relatively fast in terms of the way that I throw and the way that I trim. So, talking through it is one way of explaining it, but if you see it more than once, it's also another way of understanding. This one I'm going to do a little bit different. I want to get I want to keep the roundness of the curve. And just have and follow the curve also with the foot, and just have a kind of line there. I think my head was in the way. Alright, so same deal here. In the past, I did a really strong foot for a lot of things. I looked at the way that Mark Hewitt does his feet, and it kind of influenced me. I also have like a really delicate tea set, which I'm pretty sure is Shigaraki. Because it has that Shigaraki clay. Looks just like Shigaraki clay, if it's not. And it has just a patina on it, kind of a clear iron patina. I mean, it's got a glaze, but I'm not sure what it is. It looks like a clear over an iron clay body, so it's probably wood fired because it has a little bit of indication of fly ash. But both Mark Hewitt and that particular set that I have, that I got in an antique shop, is for next to nothing. You would not believe how little that cost. But anyway, so that's a little different. You probably could do a little bit more, but that's good enough. Once we put it down, and you can see it. So that looks right to me. So I'm gonna do the same thing here and put the